David Hume was a famous 18th century Scottish philosopher who at the core believed in common sense and the wisdom of the common man. He was born May 7th, 1711, and at the age of 25, he had no source of income and no profession. He jumped around from job to job, working as a lawyer, working as a librarian. He tried to work in universities as a professor, but never really got a good gig. He really didn't have a stunning career until he became a successful writer. His first book was called The Treatise of Human Nature, and is thought to be his greatest work. According to Daniels, in his book A Glimpse of Hume, many scholars consider it to be one of the most important books of Western philosophy to this very day. He eventually did become a successful writer, slowly honing his craft to speak to the common man. One of his more successful books was called The History of England, which was used as a standard textbook for most of the schools and universities at that time. According to Nichols, the major belief he expressed in his writings was that the one things humans should focus on in life was understanding their feelings more than their rationale. This is really in response to Descartes and the Age of Reasoning. Hume said reason is the slave for passion, and he believed that we were motivated by our emotions and used our rationale to back up our primal drives. That includes the jobs we take, the places we choose to visit or live, the people we choose to hang out with or marry. He believed it was our passions that drove us, and we used our rationale to defend our passions. He believed that good ethics is the result of being trained at an early age to get into good habits of feeling, especially towards our peers. He believed that if society could understand that their emotions were more powerful than their rationales, we could focus on that and everyone would be better off. He even believed that managing one's emotions should be taught in schools because emotions were so powerful. He believed we should attend to our emotions and educate our emotions. He didn't think all emotions were equally valid, and that's why we needed to learn to harness our emotions, and we could do that through art and creativity. He thought that in school, we should be taught about our emotions instead of just rationalizing new information. Imagine a class on breakups, or a class on how to deal with rejection or failure. He thought we should learn to be polite, lighthearted, and fun to be around. Our emotions and passions could be shaped to create a happy life this way. Hume was a very passionate man about the common man and the common man's knowledge and how common sense came from our innate wisdom directly from our senses. And because of that, he thought it was important to have public intellectuals and philosophers so people could learn this helpful information without having to go to a university and pay for it. His philosophies about emotions versus reason put him at odds with the church pretty early on. In fact, he believed that might be the reason he didn't get those university jobs. The problem he had with religion was that he didn't believe there were facts that made a rational argument for the existence of God, the God of the religions. He was more of an agnostic. He didn't necessarily believe there wasn't a God. He just didn't believe the biblical God made the universe. However, he did think that it was important not to argue with Christians because it was an emotional argument that they didn't use rationale for. And so if it made them happy and it didn't hurt anyone, what harm was it? He understood that being a rational person and having access to knowledge to make good science or a good rational person would not make you a good human. Despite our emotions, what we knew in our brain and how we could express that to people didn't necessarily make us happy or make us a good person. He was an empiricalist and believed that our senses created impressions about reality, and that triggered our emotions. He thought that simple ideas or concepts were based on our basic impressions, and more complex ideas were not based on the physical reality because complex ideas were created in the mind and not reality. He said that contents of the mind come only from experience, and argued that the main ideas can be arranged at will and therefore couldn't be reliable. Philosophical topics that he contributed to were the problem of causation, the problem of induction, the bundle theory, the associations of theories, problem of Hume's fork, moral sentiments, and unity. Of course, if we had a whole year, we could go through these. But I won't. He wanted to be the Newton of philosophy, and he did achieve this goal in some respects. Because of him, the schools of the social sciences were created, separate from the physical sciences, and of course that turned into the humanities and psychology. He wanted to use the methodology that Newton used to explain the human mind and the human soul. He thought through empirical research and using the scientific method and measuring things that could be quantified, we could find strong arguments for human behavior. He also thought that we cannot have a real accurate observation of reality. The major determinants of behavior in Hume's system were cognitive and not directly observable. He thought that experiments should have a careful observation of how experiences were related to one another and how experience is related to behavior. He thought that a strong argument didn't have to be an absolute truth, it just had to be a strong argument. And in the end of his life, he was known as a generous, humorous, kind intellectual. The wealthy loved having him over for dinner and talk philosophy with him. He was considered one of the major contributors to empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. He's also largely responsible for creating the field of psychology. He died in Edinburgh, 1776, in the company of his family and his friends, and was one of the most beloved philosophers at that time because of his revolutionary belief in the wisdom of the common man.